Hey guys, Coach Carter here. Just wanted to make a video about lung progression exercises. Lunging in itself is a pretty, dynamic, efficient movement, works on unilateral strength. One thing I notice is a lot of kids coming in the weight room. It's kind of a hard position for them to get into effectively. So I've kind of worked on a series of exercises to help athletes progress in the right way with the lunge. This happens pretty quick. I would say, say you're working with freshmen, I would say within 2 to 3 weeks of doing these exercises consistently, they'll get in these positions pretty easily, as opposed to like a deep squat, which in my opinion takes a lot more time to get kids into. Lunges is one of our base tiers. We do lots of different lunge exercises, but before we even get into the weighted versions, I think it's important we focus on some body weight exercises to make those movements more efficiently. So if you saw the squat progression exercise video, you can look at that as a bilateral progression video. This should be more unilateral, which obviously unilateral lower body strength has direct impacts on running and sprinting, since we're pushing off 1 foot at a time. So, again, why do we do progression exercises? Just because many kids don't begin with lower body strength to perform lunges. So as it is with push-ups, as it is with squats, as it is with pull-ups, just having the kids do these exercises with weight isn't going to have them optimally develop the strength, right? If we work on their body first and then add strength with weight, that's when they're really going to optimize their growth. So the cues with really all the lunge exercises for the most part is control the step. Young kids want to do it really fast. Their core is probably not strong enough. They might fall left or right. We really want them to just control the step. Want them to keep a big chest at all times. A lot of kids will kind of hunch over as they're stepping. So I can play this video as you guys can see. So again, controlling the step. So this first exercise is an iso lunge. This is when we're holding the lunge position at the bottom for, you can go anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds. I think I'm holding it here for 5 seconds, but my chest is nice and big. I'm not leaning forward and my step is controlled. For most of the exercises, we want our back knee to go 1 inch off the ground. If it touches, like you'll see in the video, that's fine. I say 1 inch off the ground to just get kids to sink down in the lunge. A lot of the times they won't sink down and then they're losing a lot of their hamstring and quad strength. So we want to really put the emphasis on that unilateral, 1 leg at a time, isometric strength when we go at the bottom of the lunge. If they tap the knee, that's fine. We always don't want them to go down hard because we don't want them to scrape or injure their knee. And then for the exercises, we want them to keep their knee behind the toe. So you can kind of see on the left of the screen, we don't want the hips to shoot forward and have the knee move forward, because it's going to put a lot of stress on the knee. Keep the knee over the toe, and that's a good guide for the athletes to follow. So in terms of the actual exercise progression, so the first one we do start out with as an iso lunge. So as you can see in the video, I'm just stepping and holding at the bottom, and then I would count out loud, and then I would say, at the time frame, the kids come back, and then we would alternate our step. Again, you can go anywhere between 5 to 10 seconds. We're just teaching the kids how to hold this position, right? So when we isometrically hold it, A, we're working out the muscles, but B, I'm teaching the body how to hold this position. What does it feel like to be in the hardest position of this exercise? Similar to an iso squat, we're just now moving it over to a lunge. Number 2 would be an alternating lunge. So now we're just moving and stepping. So every step I would alternate my feet. So I'm pushing out with my front foot here. Again, big chest, keep a knee behind the toe, nice and controlled movement. Again, a very common error you would see with new athletes with this exercise is they want to move their back foot forward. For this one, we want them pushing off with their front foot to work a lot of that anterior, get that quad firing. So again, you'll see nice and controlled, back foot stays firmly in the ground. And again, no weight here. We do almost all the exercises you're going to see in this video we do with weight eventually, but this would be a group of exercises we just do quickly as a warm-up to get our kids in these movements. Moving to a little more dynamic, now we're going to be walking. So now I will be moving my back foot forward with this exercise. A little tough with the camera here to fit it all on the screen, but you'll see as I'm walking and then bringing it forward and alternating every step. So my back foot now is moving forward to where I ended my first step. Now I'm coming at the screen. You can see I'm balanced, walking in a straight line, just nice and controlled. Most kids, I think, will be able to gather this movement pattern pretty quickly, but I still recommend doing it for a couple weeks on air to really get the movements solidified. Because again, we're working with young athletes. again, your really athletic ones are going to have no issues with these workouts, but the ones that maybe have never played sports or maybe have just played certain sports where you don't have to get in these positions are going to have a harder time doing them. Okay, so now we're getting into more dynamic. So the theme kind of all the progression exercises is they start with the least dynamic and work their way to the most dynamic. So now we're working backwards. So now we're going reverse lunges. This will be a little more awkward for the kids to get into. We're holding the isometric position first. You'll feel it more in the hamstring now when you push back forward. So we're stepping back and then coming forward. You will have a little balance issues, if you're a newbie to this. But again, I think working forward and backward, just trying to get the body working different planes of motion. I possibly overstep a little bit in these exercise videos. You don't have to step too far back, but you do want to get far enough to where you can get your back knee an inch off the ground. So again, we started with an iso lunge. We're holding it for 5 to 10 seconds. Now I'm going to the reverse lunge exercise where I'm just pushing off now. So you definitely will feel this a little more of the posterior, a little more of the glute and hamstring. So now I'm stepping back, pushing forward. Stepping back, pushing forward. So again, you want to sink at the bottom, get the back knee inch off the ground, and just control it in a nice fluid motion. Just a couple more seconds of this one. So I say reverse because I'm stepping backwards. So moving into the next dynamic would be 8 angle. So now I worked linear forward, linear backward. Now this is going to get us a little bit more to a angled position. Lots of different ways you could do this drill. You could do it with a medicine ball and do lateral jumps, but in this one it's me just kind of going at a slow pace forward to the side, lateral, then back. So as you can see, I'm going straight forward. Okay, now I'm going to be going at a 45-degree angle. Okay, so I'm opening up my hips. Now I'm pushing off at a different position, working the psoas of the hips and working those anterior, right now the quads a little bit more dynamically. So now I'm going lateral again. You can do this independently. Lateral movements, obviously, great for almost any sport. I know they have the shuffle boards. You can push off and you can slide. That's awesome. I don't have that type of I don't have those accessories yet, but those are great. I had to move forward here. Ideally, you're in a position where you can just go straight back without moving. Now I'm going lateral back at an angle, and now I'm going straight back. So again, just trying to push off different planes. Again, getting my body used to pushing off at different angles. Obviously, open chain movements like football, like soccer, you don't know what angle you're going to have to be coming from. So we want to make sure we're preparing the body to go in all those different angles. Okay, and going to our last two now, again, a little more dynamic. So now we're using step-ups without weight. So this is a great exercise to really put pressure on the quad. I like to triple extend at the top. Some people go up on the toe at the top. I'm not a big fan of that just because kids usually fall and it slows down the exercise. But I definitely want my opposite leg to come up to get that opposite leg knee even with my hip. So you'll see here in the video, I'm alternating and then throwing that knee up. Alternating and throwing that knee up. No weight here. Again, we're just progressing. This is just going to get a little more stress on my steps. If kids are having a hard time getting up there, you can use a lower box, usually benches or 12-inch plyometric box will do the trick. And then going to our last exercise, now we're putting a lot more stress on our posterior unilateral chain, and we're going to do split squats without weights. So again, we do this exercise with weights, but in terms of a progression exercise, we won't use weight here. So a couple cues with this is the back leg. You just want the toe. Sometimes some people like the toe up, some people like the toe flat. I don't overcoach it in that regard, but you just want to make sure only your toe is hanging off, and you want your opposite foot to be far enough forward so you can sink all the way down. A lot of times kids will put their foot on the ground too close to the bench, and it's going to limit how far they can drop. You just want to make sure, again, you can drop to get your knee about an inch off the ground. So let me go from the beginning here. Again, you want to keep the heel flat on the ground. You'll definitely feel this right in the quad, in the posterior chain. You'll feel it in the quad as well. You'll get a good burn in the leg that's being worked out here. A little awkward again, but if we're talking about just putting a lot of stress, muscular stress on our unilateral limbs, this is going to be a great one for the lower body. Again, I wouldn't really do this right away. I'd probably wait until you knock out some of these top progression exercises before you get into unilateral split squats. All right, so again, hopefully that gives you guys some good ideas. Don't feel like you got to knock all these out every day. You can start with 2 and work your way down the list, do a couple each day. Kids will catch on to lunges pretty quickly, in my experience. Programming, again, we put these in as a warm-up. We can do these after we stretch. We can do this right before we actually start lifting weights. We can do this as a cool down. But again, just getting the kids in these movement patterns is going to make them more functional with the actual lifts they're doing with weight, and it's going to optimize their strength gains in the weight room. So thanks for watching, guys.